Morning, thank you for being here. This incident started at 3150 Navarre at a tavern called Icons. It's in the city of Oregon. There were two groups. Both groups were comprised of two males and a female. The one group was from out of town. And at some point there was a verbal dispute between the two groups, between the two females. The dispute eventually got out into the parking lot where one of the males from the out-of-town group pulled out a gun and struck one of the males from the local group over the head. And took that same gun and fired it into the air. All three suspects then fled. The two males and the female that were from out of town fled on foot toward the Holiday Inn, where we believe they spent the night last night. One of our Oregon sergeants was pulling in to the lot and saw the suspect vehicle leaving. At that time he didn't know it was a suspect vehicle. Began to follow it. The vehicle fled at a high rate of speed. The officer pursued it. The suspect vehicle turned off its lights. It went eastbound on Dustin Road and then southbound on Coy Road. And very shortly thereafter ended up in the city of Northwood. This was Sergeant Ken Reno that spotted the vehicle and was following it. This first call came into the Oregon Police Dispatch at around 11:09. And there were two additional calls that came in. The initial call was a man with the gun, shots fired. There was another call that came in, someone bleeding from the head. And then someone reported to our dispatchers that the suspects took off toward the Holiday Inn. At about 3:16, Northwood got a call from a resident over on Lear Road where the shooting occurred, reporting some type of suspicious activity. And what had happened was the suspects had pulled onto Lear Road. They either came in off of Curtis or they came in off of Coy, but they got back into the 1900 block of Lear. They backed their suspect vehicle into a private driveway with the lights off. At one point, one of the males got out of the car, went up to another vehicle. They were going to try and steal a license plate, is what we learned through our investigation. The Northwood officers arrived on scene first. They were able to apprehend that vehicle after a very short foot pursuit.
The suspect.
I'm sorry?
The suspect.
The
Yeah.
suspect,
Yeah.
after a very short foot pursuit. And the three Oregon officers had arrived at approximately the same time. Now, this would have been Sergeant Ken Reno, Officer Timothy Stecker, and Sergeant Jeffrey Martin, who is our canine officer, and had his canine with him. Officer Tim Stecker pulled in off of Lear Road and off of Curtis onto Lear and went down north. Eventually turned around and was coming back at about the time that Northwood arrived and had apprehended one of the suspects. He had his driver's window open and a shot rang out from his left. And this is where the suspect vehicle was parked. Officer Stecker is extremely lucky. He was leaning forward at the time that this shot rang out, adjusting the spotlight on his vehicle. The shot came in through the driver's window, went right behind his back, and exited through the door frame next to the window on the passenger side. We later determined that that shot came from a sawed-off shotgun that was recovered at the scene. It was a rifle slug. The slug was located about 100 feet west of Officer Stecker's vehicle. After that first shot was fired, it became a gun battle. There were three suspects, there were three guns. All three suspects had guns. There There were a total of 6 officers on the scene, 3 from Northwood, 3 from Oregon, and 5 of the 6 ended up firing weapons. There was a 22-year-old female who was fatally shot, we believe from the officer's fire. We also believe that that female fired at the officers. There was a gun found next to her. There were also 2 spent shell casings found next to her. I'm going to turn it over to Chief Tom Carroll now to continue. Go ahead, Tom.
Okay, we have, when the officers showed up, because the person called us and alerted us there might be somebody around this house, so the officers pulled in, they saw him, they got into a foot chase with him. They chased him around behind the homes, he came back out. When he came back out, he almost came out right where he went in. I kind of still think that he was trying to set the officers up for an ambush, because he came right out, and the officers, all their backs are now to the suspects that are behind them in a dark car, parked in their driveway, and while they're trying to take this guy into custody, that's when they're starting to ring shots out at the officers. Okay, so you got those 2 people behind the cars firing at the officers, the one that almost struck Officer Stecker, and then all the officers now arresting this gentleman and then engaging the other suspects. So there's 5 officers now engaging the 2 people. And then we got 1 deceased female. Her identity will be released at a later time and date once we notify the next of kin. 1 gentleman he was shot in the right calf and taken to St. Charles Hospital, treated and released. And he also got a fragment in his right forearm, I guess. His name is Jack Walensky. It's common spelling Jack, and the last name is Walensky, W-E-L-N-I-N-S-K-I. Date of birth is 6/24/1985. He is being charged with 2 counts of attempted aggravated murder on law enforcement officers. The other person we took into custody that they actually chased and caught is a Kenneth Malnado, and it's M-A-L-D-O-N-A-D-O, and his date of birth is 7/11/1989. He's being charged with weapons under disability, obstruction of official business, which is a felony, and attempted theft. And like Chief Navarre mentioned, they were looking at possibly stealing the license plate off a car and then probably trying to get out of Dodge when the officers came around the corner and approached them. They took off. The officers did their jobs last night protecting and serving our residents. These are some bad folks. I can tell you one of the weapons that was found at the scene was a sawed-off shotgun. Okay? People normally don't have that. These people are some bad folks, I do believe. We know who they are. And I'm grateful that none of the officers were injured last night.